Good morning, everyone. I hope you're having an absolutely marvelous Saturday morning. It's that time of year where the weather starts to turn, and I know for some of you it's like, no, it's still hot, it's still this, but you can feel that crisp morning, that part of the day where you're kind of looking at it going, you know, I really need to take more of a maybe a sweater outside just in case, but then it warms up and it's exceedingly hot. But the nights are cool. So for me, it's even though summer is just a month old, for me, it's the winding down into the fall season, and it makes me very sad. I love spring, I love summer. Anyway, I was talking to someone, a friend of mine, and she says, "Why do you do what you do? Have you ever told anybody why you're so passionate about how you do what you do and why you do it?" And I said, "Well, I don't know. I don't think so. I've told bits and pieces of the story. Explained to people some things, but I don't think anybody really understands the depth of my commitment to this work." And she said, you need to go and you need to tell it out loud because it's important that people know that they can have their passion too. It's important that people know that they what they're doing matters. And so, Tracy, this one's for you. I hope I do it justice. Um, when I was a little kid, I didn't fit in with my family. They were much older. I have an old 8-year old sister, 8 years older, one 7 years older. My mother was 29 when I was born. My dad was 37. And the sister closest to me, she was 3 years older. I was the tail end. She thought she was the baby, and I was. And I would watch them and the interactions between them. I remember seeing the energy flowing between everybody. And I came from a very unusually closed off family. The emotions didn't always get out there and share. And so I judged what was going on by the color exchanges, the aura. I didn't know what it was called. And then I thought everybody saw it. Evidently, that's not true. Um, some people, I think personally, that until we're like 3 or 4, everybody sees auras until life kind of takes a turn and you start getting into the more mundane lifestyle, and that changes. So when I did this, and I learned how to feel my way through life, and it was pretty intense and difficult because my family we were one of the first families in town that got divorced. My mother moved us to Holbrook, Arizona. The two younger one of us, our family split up. The older ones went with my dad, the youngers with my mom. When I was about 14, I moved in with my grandmother, and she had the spookiest house. Oh my God. The conversations, you could hear them. I could feel people around me constantly, and I could hear voices. And my grandfather had already passed, but I would hear a male voice downstairs. And there was, tumultuous lifestyle because both parents drank heavily, um, which I believe triggers your intuition. I believe trauma triggers that intuitive hit. You become aware of pros and cons, good and bad. You start scanning the room to see what's going on. But I heard the voices and I thought, oh, hell, I'm like some of my family members that have schizophrenia. My father thought I had schizophrenia, but I didn't. I was just incredibly psychic. And I could feel them talking. I used to go downstairs. She had the washer dryer in the basement, and I would go downstairs. And when I would go downstairs to change the loads over or bring laundry up for her, whatever it was I was doing, going down to the deep freeze, I would hear them laughing because my grandfather played pitch and pan and poker downstairs. He had a full, they built a bar in their basement. And so it was pretty creepy. there was one spot that was just really always cold. It was like somebody just stood there as the sentient guardian. And I go to upstairs. She had, 2-story home. So it was in downtown Gallup. And I would go to the top in my room, and I would hear the whispers and the doorbell, the chimes would like ting, but they weren't moving. So these are the things that kind of got me interested in this kind of stuff. And I started studying. Time goes on. I got married, got divorced, went and did my life, much to many people's chagrin. I did not live by the rules that other people thought I should live by. My daughter got a blood disease, and I struggled. I struggled a long time to try to pay that off. My ex-husband was not helpful at all because he wanted to take the deduction for giving me child support, which even in those days it didn't go far. Her daycare was $140 a month, and he gave me $100 a month. I finally got it raised to that 140. Took him forever to pay it. Sometimes he didn't. It was his world over his daughter's. So I really struggled. And I started, understanding that things were happening, and I shut down my psychic. I couldn't control it. It would just blurt out. What started happening for me is that I started understanding that I was different. I didn't react the same way that other people did. I didn't desire somebody to come and rescue me, sweep me off my feet, and make it all better. It would have been nice. Oh, boy, I could have used some support for where I was at and what I was going through, but I wasn't willing to settle. And many years later, not many, 6 years later, my son was born, separate father. And again, a lot of tumultuousness from the trauma that I was raised with. There wasn't any doubt in my mind that created a resistance to permanence. And my love of metaphysics still made me a bit odd. And I still studied, and I didn't fit in. And I was okay with that. And that went with a lot of my friends. I had a free spirit. I had, a different level of awareness. So I raised my kids primarily on my own. And one day, I was standing in my boyfriend's closet. I would go up to Toronto, and I would stay 6 months, and then I would come back. And I heard spirit again, pack what's important to you. You're going to go back to Albuquerque. And I was like, what? What? Because I was coming back for my 6 months. You're not going to be back for a while. Pack what's important to you. And this kept getting repeated to me. So I thought, well, I'm going to go with it. So I packed what was important. I did leave a black mink coat and all my shoes and all my business professional clothes, because that wasn't as important, because I really didn't believe that I wasn't going back. I did go back, but only for 2 weeks, and that was it. Life took its merry turns as it does. Anyway, I came back to Albuquerque and I started writing classes in metaphysics. I said, Spirit, why is this happening? Why am I writing classes in metaphysics? And they said, go see what's being taught out there. So I did. And I was horrified. I walked into, I don't know if any of y'all remember Crystal Dove. And I said, Olga, how's it going? And she's like, fine, how you doing? How's Canada? Blah, blah, blah. I said, it was lovely. It's great to be back, though. I'm enjoying my visit. And I said, but, I'm just curious. What does it take to give classes here? And she said, well, your classes have to be approved by me. I was like, well, that's fair. It's her facility. So I said, well, where are your classes posted? And I looked on the wall, and there was somebody, I don't know who, don't care, that said that they could remove your karma for $3,000 or 300, sorry, 300. I would have paid 3,000 had it been able to be true, but you can't clear somebody's karma, not even for 3,000, but I would have paid it. Anyway, $300. And in their class, they would show you how to do it, and then we're going to give the class for 30. And I'm like, 30 to show you how to do it, 300 to do it for you. Bullshit. Because karma is not what people think. It's not payback. It's that ability to understand that you bring lessons to you to grow in consciousness. And everything is evolving. You're either evolving, devolving, or because you're not static. You don't just stay the same. You might have the present moment where it feels like it's the same, but you're still growing or digressing. So these are the things that I was shocked at. And I thought, well, now I understand. And then I talked to a friend of mine. She says, yeah, I became a Reiki master while you were gone. I says, how long did it take you? She said, 6 months. And I said, didn't we talk about this as a thing that the first year of training, the first year is about healing you? Oh, the energy is so empowering. And I thought, wow, there's problems with this. And I realized, I know that this isn't comfortable for some people to hear, and I'm sorry, but I watched her go through hell when she went through this. She got her master's. She started turning other people into masters without even having a full year under her belt. And drama started ensuing in her life because she hadn't healed her own drama. So as much as I loved her, I had to step away because that wasn't my thing. I could not in full consciousness validate that. And I still think about her and wish her well, but I'm sure she's gotten valuable life lessons since then. Still, it's something that really bothers me that Reiki was turned into something so that people could make money. And you can become a master, so you can start turning other people into masters. And the lineages are getting bastardized. I asked one woman that came in, she goes, what do you mean, my lineage? She didn't even know what I was talking about. And that's why when I started Resonant Essentials, I was like, we need a place for true teaching. So every instructor that ever comes through the center, I have vetted, I validate, and I stand by what they teach. Because I don't believe in false promises. I don't believe in teaching things that aren't true. And the funny thing is through that time, I've seen people try to take teachings from other people and turn it into their own. Brother Francis is such a love, and he teaches so amazingly. And I watched somebody take something that he was teaching, white light meditation, and tried to do it as if they were giving it because they went to his class and they thought they could do it. Well, he's been a meditation instructor for 50 plus years, and many of you know him. Many of you on YouTube, if you're watching this channel, have heard of him, have heard him. If you're not his viewers, and you know how he stands by his work. He stands in his integrity. But somebody else tried teaching the stuff that he taught on selenite. And I've watched this kind of work going on. And that's when I decided I'm going to turn Resonant Essentials into a nonprofit. But what really switched, what was really the hard thing that I went through is, and what I'm doing this video for is that in 2018, as many of you know, my son passed away. And it was the first time since I got pregnant with him, I couldn't hear him. He and I spoke telepathically. I could feel him. I could feel his presence. But when he died, I couldn't feel him. And it took me to a really dark and ugly place. it devastated me. It broke my heart. And just short of a year later, after his deathing, I found out that my boyfriend was being free with his accolades. I'll say it that way. And that about broke me because I lost my son. I lost somebody I thought was really my perfect match on so many levels. And we're still friends, but I can never feel the same about him as I once did because of that. And then I had two dogs die. And then my son's truck, I was with another woman who had lost her son. We were taking back a big cement grinder back to Home Depot. We were getting the Resonant Essentials location that was up on Eubank, the cement primed for epoxy flooring. And we're taking it back, and we were coming back to the center, and the truck caught fire. So I lost his truck. I lost his dog. I lost my dog because they had an alpha war. I lost him. I lost my boyfriend. And I was like, why? And I was depleted. I couldn't function. And I realized there are so many people out there. There's so many of us in trauma that have gone through these losses. And the one thing that stands very clear right now in this world is that we are here to be a voice and empowerment for each other. It's time that we stand up and we really look at who we are. My son died because he didn't have health care. And I guess this is pretty raw for me right now because my sister called the day after my son's passing. She said, "Oh my gosh, I forgot his death day. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." And we were talking, and I said, I'm gonna get knee surgery. And I said, before I lose insurance. She goes, got into a political discussion. I said, "I don't want to talk about this. Stop." And she's like, "Well, maybe, blah, blah, blah." And I said, "Blah, blah, blah." And I said, my son died because he didn't have health care. My son died because we don't care enough about each other as human beings. And we care about our own family. We don't want to see our family go the wayside. We don't want to see our family die because they couldn't get health care. They did not take my son in for an endoscopy immediately. They didn't operate immediately because he didn't have insurance. So they got him covered by Medicaid because he had a choice. He could pay his child support or he could pay for his health insurance, and he chose child support. He chose to take care of his daughter, which many people go, "Oh, that's so admirable." Fuck that. Sorry, but yeah. We should be giving people health care. We should be caring whether they live. We should be caring whether they die. We should be caring about each other. We shouldn't be sitting here so worried that we're not going to get a little bit of our own. And that's why I started the center. That's why I wanted, because y'all are my family. That's why I wanted you to come in and train to really understand the connection your intuition can hold for you to really understand metaphysics, get that foundation so that you can grow as a person, you can grow in consciousness, and we can quit this hate that seems to be overrunning our country right now. Because I don't understand. I don't understand. Meditation is not just something that you do with somebody guiding you through it. You don't just turn on a YouTube channel and listen to a meditation. Meditation is that deep removal of head talking so that you can hear what's in your heart. Meditation is that opportunity to embrace, release, let go. It is also the first steps in healing trauma. And trauma triggers our intuition. And when we don't understand those two things, if we don't have control of those two things, we struggle as human beings together. We struggle and we watch each other hate each other, and we pick and choose who gets food and who doesn't, who gets health care, who doesn't, who lives, who dies. Because the one thing that I have learned is that it doesn't matter if, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. What matters is what you do with what your heart says is true. It matters how you treat each other. It doesn't matter how much money you have, what your cars look like, because you know what? It's gone in an instant. It's gone. You die in an instant. They die in an instant. You break up in an instant. Doesn't matter how much you love somebody. Sometimes you have to let them go in order to come full into who you are. It doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is, what did you learn? What heart-centeredness? So I was asked to be on KCHF, and I thought it was really kind of odd. It's a Christian station, but I was like down for it. I was down to give them the respect. They said, no, metaphysics isn't, the person who was going to interview me was real pumped and excited. Such a wonderful lady, just a wonderful woman. The program director said, no, metaphysics isn't for Christians. And I thought, wow, censorship. And I said, how do you know? Because I know lots of Christians that understand metaphysics. Because metaphysics is not something that's here nor there. It's the all. It's the understanding that you take the information that's given and you rise in consciousness. So I don't care, Jesus, Christianity, Muslim, doesn't matter. It's the understanding of consciousness and the shift. It's the empowerment that you get by understanding what you're really believing in. So as a result, I'm not on the Christian station, and that's okay, because we are a nonprofit and we will be funded, and we have some beautiful people in this world that will understand it, and we have some beautiful people in this world that won't. But the point is you can't decide if you understand it or not if you don't learn about it. Having those intuitive hits can bring on panic attacks, anxiety, especially for people who are first responders, especially for people who are going through taking the 911 call. The instructors or social workers at APS, they go through a lot of stress because our kids go through a lot of stress. A lot of our kids in APS are homeless. And ironically, we don't acknowledge that. And it's so sad. But we need to get behind these people. And these people need that support and that love. And that's why I do what I do. I do it because at the end of the day, the only thing that matters is that I showed up for myself and for everybody else. So I hope that helps understand a little bit more about what Resonant Essentials means. It's that we resonate. We all resonate together. We have a vibration. The earth has a vibration. The rain has a vibration. Everything has vibration, okay? Whether it's moving really slow, like a table, there is still a vibration. And I believe that there is still consciousness in all things. I believe that plants have a consciousness. A lot of people say, well, I can't eat a cow because that cow has a spirit. Well, I think even the plants have a spirit. So what's the judgment here? Which is not what we should be doing. We shouldn't be judging. I know that a lot of people send me messages and they talk about the pain that they're in. There's a lot of death going on right now, and they don't understand. And I want to help them understand. And that's what we do. We step it up. We put our big girl and big boy panties on, and we get on down the road. We decide that we can make a difference for each other. Doesn't matter how long it takes. If you change the world for one person, that one person could be the person on TED Talks changing the minds of 1 million people for the better. That one person can become our next somebody that has a higher understanding that can bring us that next level of consciousness. That one person might be the person that gives you love back to support you through your darkest hours. That one person matters. So understand that this is why we do what we do at Resonant Essentials. We have some new board members. We're getting bigger, we're getting stronger, and we're going to make a difference in Albuquerque because Albuquerque deserves it. We have our classes. These are not for the weak of heart. These are foundation classes for people who really want to change their life, who really want to embrace what they're doing. And I'm going to be going online with these classes. So if you're interested in online, get in touch with me. But we're going to be making a difference with or without anybody else. I don't care who comes along for the ride and who I have to leave behind, because I want to be there for that one person that is going to change the world. And if we can do it together, all the better. So that's why Resonant Essentials exists. That's why I have the passion that I do. I was a lost little girl who had a crazy intuitive hits. I had heard spirits, and I didn't know how to control it, and I didn't know how to deal with it. I just was lost and alone, and I don't want anybody else to feel alone ever. I don't want anybody to think they're crazy ever. So what I do so that no one feels the way I did as a teenager, as a young mother, as a mother mourning her son. It was the death walk of the metaphysician. My son's death took me so far down. I had nowhere else to go except either further or up. And that dark night of the soul was something that changed everything about my life. He was 34. He left behind a 12-year-old daughter, a sister who was just turning 40, beautiful niece, and a beautiful nephew that was 12 and 18. And we struggled as a family together. But we're still together, and we're still strong. And those people that are going through this, I want you to know I hear you, I feel you. It's trauma like no other trauma to lose somebody you love so deeply. But that trauma you can heal from. If I can, you can, because my kids were my world. Remember, I did it on my own. I chose to raise my kids on my own rather than sacrifice my belief system for some part-time relationship, because that's all it was me showing up for them. It wasn't me showing up for myself. So I could only do part-time. With that being said, I want you to show up for yourself. I want you to know that somebody cares about you. And I want you to know that Albuquerque can change and will change, because we're going to do it together. My heart to all of yours. I hope you can hear me. I love each and every person in my world, and those that haven't come in yet, and those of you that have left it, because that's what really matters, is love. Bye for now. I hope you have a great weekend, and I'll talk with you later.